Can you speak of your career as a top male escort and model?
Why not? I started as a teen. I worked as a model in Italy and was there many times. I did private photo shoot collections for wealthy businessmen. I was also in a few runway shows for a friend. I began working as a high-end male escort in Toronto. I worked all over Canada. I lived in Los Angeles, Hollywood, Miami, Chicago, Las Vegas, and New York City. I always had my own condos and homes provided to me. My clients paid me a lot of money, and I, in return, provided a very valuable service. It was all completely legitimate. People were always jealous of me since I was in the best cars and clothes. I also always had more jewelry than anyone. I prefer jewelry over money. My life mirrored the film Casino. I was always traveling, and I lived and worked in over 38 different countries. I lived and worked in Moscow, Russia for quite some time, Asia, South America, and the Middle East. As I've stated, most people will never know anything about my life. For the record, my career for 10 years was a top male escort. I worked briefly at a gentleman's club in Toronto as an exotic dancer, making a lot of money, and as a video model. I was never, ever an actor, nor a porn star. As a favor to a friend, I did a few adult films and was paid extremely well. That is hardly considered working as a porn star. I was a male model and a very successful escort. So folks, don't believe fake news or the media's ridiculous clickbait propaganda.
Do you believe you received a fair trial?
Of course not. From the beginning, I was convicted in the media before I ever entered a courtroom. The hysterical idiots in the press make it almost impossible for anyone to get a fair trial. The idiotic police bungled everything from the beginning. They failed to properly secure the crime scene, failed to interview key witnesses. Ava Gardner film, I'm waiting for my contact